G'day trendsetters, Greg here from Fishplay Films and welcome to episode 17 of the BNSF Birdwood subdivision! Well, those of you who know that if you see these old U-boats pulling this train, this is the work train, so that means there's stuff going down, man. And this is the train I use to carry all my fish plates and spikes and files and all that sort of thing when I'm working on track. So, there has been a bit happening on the sub. I know it's been a while and Lord Stan's got a little bit toey and has sort of kicked my rear into gear, and we've been laying a few turnouts, laying a bit of track. So, I haven't been on shift, I've been actually doing the boss's job, which is a bit scary. So it's surprising how much time you don't get on shift. You think you get less time at home on shift, you actually get more. Anyway, so it's been a bit hard to try and get things done. Also been building the whiskey room. So let's go and have a look at what's happening on the sub. Now, I've got, where is it? I've got 5 of these to put in. 5 tortoises. So by the magic of television, we're going to finish them off as the work train grinds its way up the helix to get to the site, and we'll see you when they're in and we're up there. Well, there certainly is some stuff going down, man. So much so that it's taken a week for this train to get here, and I've had a haircut and changed my shirt. But not only that, so much that this episode will be shot in 2 parts. Now, in part A, for my newer subscribers, we'll revisit some classic things like laying track on curbs, doing staggered, soldered rail joints on your curbs that look good and are practical and very strong. We'll also have a look at laying turnouts nice and smooth so they operate correctly, getting the crossovers lined up, and also marking and mounting the tortoise switch machines for my newer people that haven't seen all the old stuff. We'll also have a look at inserting ties or sleepers into tight little places so you don't have to cut them, and also joining short pieces of rail, fitting snug pieces of rail in while they're having to bend all the track in to fit the fish plates, and little classic little things like that. And then in part 2 or part B, we'll look at the overall scheme of the new track work, how it fits in, how it's operational, and believe it or not, a little bit of scenery mock-up, trendsetters. Don't fall off your chairs, there's a little bit there. But also, the main thing in part B, we're going to run some trains, because trains have been sitting here for too long. So, grab a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Train's gone. Ah!
Now, first thing to do is to lay a pad for our turnout. You can use cut-offs from your cork underlay here, there's no need to buy the pads, and just follow your centre line and you're ready to go.
And another very important thing before we lay our turnout is we've got all these little scraps here, is to give that a nice sand down to make sure it's all nice and smooth. Because sometimes even the 2 levels of cork are just a tiny bit different, not much, but what I found is different boxes of cork can be a little bit different too. So we'll give this a bit of a sand and then this is ready for the turnout. Now trendsetters, if you haven't got one of these already, get yourself a fine multi-tool or multi-master. These are brilliant. They do make cheaper ones now, you know, like at your local $1 million hardware store, but they're crap. If you want a really nice tool that will cut, grind, file, sand, and do everything really super fine, which is what we need for stuff like this, a nice gentle action, get yourself one of these. They're brilliant. So what we'll do, we'll just sand this down now, and just a tiny bit, just to make sure any rough perfections are off it. And we'll also do the side of the cork here, trendsetters. Yes, Art Houston tells me I've got to sand the side of my cork, so I'm doing it, Arthur. That does make a big difference when you're putting ballast on it. It hasn't got that sharp edge. Just take the top off it, as the actress said to the bishop. full turn settings. Now you see this edge along here, probably doesn't show up that much on the video, but it's just taken that sharp edge off it, and it'll be a lot easier for the ballast to look a lot nicer with the ballast sitting there. And that's quite a fine sandpaper grit I got in there. I think it's a 180 or a 200 grit, so it's super fine. And it's just taken any roughness off there. Beautiful. And of course this little bit here will be filled in with another little bit of cork. And the ballast will cover all that, so just use all your scraps for your turnout pads. Now before we can get the main line running again, we need to install this last turnout. And for those of you that are new subscribers or haven't seen me install the turnout before, these are Tillig turnouts. They're from Germany, and the sleeper spacings don't match, but I like them because they're a one-piece spring turnout here, one-piece switch, or a heeler switch, as we call them down here. The heel is the pivot that's normally in a turnout that allows the switch rail to move, because most modern turnouts are heelers or a spring switch, and the Tillig are the only commercial made turnouts that I'm aware of that are a spring switch. And yes, I could make the, what are they called? Track ride or whatever they are. Turnouts, the hand laid ones. I'll remember the name in a minute. You're all screaming it at me. But look, I don't have the time, that's just another thing. And I don't know why Pico or Microengineering or whatever don't make a spring switch machine. They're easier to make than one with a pivot in it, and they're much more prototypical. So anyone who knows anyone from Pico or Microengineering, get your finger out of your bum, get with the times and make a modern turnout. So I'm not buying German stuff. Nothing against the Germans, but the fact that it is very nice gear, but it's not prototypical. The sleeper spacings are wrong and the geometry is slightly different. So it's still about a number, this is a number 8, sorry, number 6, but they're just slightly different. But I like them, they're a very nice turnout. Come weathered, very nice, except the sleeper spacing is wrong. So, shut up Greg and get on with it. Okay, so I've aligned this up, I've got some pins here to make sure that I put it back in the same spot. And now I'm going to mark out where the throw bar goes for our tortoise switch machine. Now those of you know that I only have one eye and I don't have binocular vision, and I find doing things like this quite tedious, and it's getting worse as my good eye gets even worse. So I like to be precise when I mark things, and I know some people just put the turnout in place, drill a big hole and hope for the best. But I like to mark them out a little bit easier, more accurately, especially for my eyes anyway. So it's in place. Because they're on cork, it's pretty hard to notice it. So I'm just going to put a mark on the side of this sleeper, or should I say tie, another mark there. So we've got a mark there and a mark there. That gives us our centre this way. I'll just go between those two. And now I'll get my switches and I'll put the switch in the middle. And that's pretty good there. What I used to do was actually put a nail through here and drive a spike right down into the timber. And you could do that as well, and then that marks the timber so you know exactly where you're drilling. And I think the hole, yeah, I stopped doing that because these track pins are a bit bigger, so I don't do that anymore. But that's no worries. What I do now is just put a mark there. Oh, I should have had a different pencil, but anyway, there we go. Now, what I made the mistake a couple of times of using the centre line of the cork, but that buggered me up on one because your rail, sometimes depending on where your turnouts are, they're not always in the centre line of your cork. I was just using the centre line of the cork, and that got me into a whole lot of trouble with a crossover down on the lower level. So now I mark exactly where the switch is in the middle. Now you can see we've marked the lines here. That's our centre for our throw bar this way, and that's our centre for our between our normal and reverse here. It just so happens that on this particular occasion it is right in the middle of the cork. Now what you could do is get a small drill. Remember, always do a pilot hole first, and put your drill in the centre and drill down, and then put a bigger drill through your 1/4 inch or whatever. But you can find that when you go to drill through the cork is quite soft in comparison to the timber. The drill can move, and if you're like me and you're only putting a 1/4 inch hole through here, if that drill moves 1 mil or so, that can throw your hole out quite a bit. So that's happened to me in the past as well. As you've gone through the cork, the drill's moved because there's really nothing to hold it. If you're really careful with your drilling, you can just drill through right now from this stage on your mark there. But what I'm going to do is cut out just a little square so I can actually drill into the timber. Now you're probably thinking, this guy is nuts, and you would be correct. But I'm afraid I don't have the option of great eyesight, so this is the way it is. Right. So now I can see down actually onto the timber, and I've still got my line here, and I've still got my line here, so I can just correspond that into there, put the drill in the centre, and away you go. But if you're happy to drill through the cork, which, you know, 9 times out of 10 you can get it pretty accurate, then feel free to do that. Right, we've put our 1/8 pilot hole through here first, 1/8. Now we'll go through with our 1/4 inch. Now some of you might be happy just to put the 1/4 inch through straight away. It's up to you. But as I say, I like to leave the smallest hole possible through the baseboard, and of course the smaller the hole, the more accurate you have to be, because your wire isn't going to throw that far, or will get caught on the edge of the hole. Okay, also make sure your drill is vertical both ways. You can still see with our lines here. Just double check that. Alright, to put the turnout back in place. Now I'm just going to mark the turnout out using the old tortoise template. And just whack that up in the hole, mark it out, and then we're right to install the machine. Okay, well I'm happy with everything sitting now. Just going to have a ball's eye view down here. A ball's eye view, interesting. Bird's eye view of down here to make sure that every time I throw the switch across, that I can make sure that the hole is still clear. And yep. So even with all that mucking around, that hole is probably about 1.5 mil off the centre, which is almost enough to be out and not have the throw bar hit on the side of the hole. So it doesn't take much when you're doing a small hole to make it inaccurate. So that has moved a little bit even with all that mucking around. Some of you with 2 good eyes might be able to just do that straight away, boom, not a problem. But as I've mentioned before, I really struggle putting these things in. But no, happy with that. And we've marked underneath with the template, so I won't bore you with doing that. We've done that before, so we'll get this main line joined and continue on with the update. Now we've got our panel of track cut ready to go in here, and I don't want to unspike all the track going up the other end, and of course our turnout's already in place. So how do we get this piece of track in here with all the fish plates on? Especially when we have to put an insulated fish plate on this end here at our frog, and so we can't do much with that because they're pretty solid. So we'll show you what we do. Now this is a micro-engineering insulated fish plate. Those of you who know can see them, little brown Duvawaki there. Yep. Now, with Pico Track and Tillig, they're actually quite a snug fit. So I've got this little bit of rail here that I've sharpened on one end, and it's sort of sharpened on every angle, there and there. So I can virtually just put that on like that, and that squeezes the fish plate out enough to make it flex enough to go onto the Pico Track, and any track really. And I also use this device for my micro-engineering steel, or should I say nickel-silver fish plates. I do both ends here because the micro-engineering fish plates are very tight on Pico, and unless you use a bit of rail like this to force them out, you won't get them on. But you just have it a nice little wedgy shape, so you can put them on. I always spray a little bit of inox, a little bit of WD-40 on there, and that way they go on a lot easier. So it's both the insulated and the normal fish plates, nickel silver. Right, we've got our panel of track in now, and we've got our fish plates snuck up all the way there and all the way there. So all we need to do now is just slide them back onto this rail here, and the rail is in. We haven't had to take up this piece. Hopefully it'll work. Oh, there we go. There's one. And there's the other one. Now, you may notice that there's a gap here and a gap here. That's because today is not all that hot. And remember, I keep going on about expansion, and I can guarantee that that gap will close when our summer arrives. Now, of course, there comes a time when you're going around your curves that you're going to end up with this sort of arrangement with your inner rail creeping further and further forward. So what I like to do, and I've covered this before in earlier updates, but since I've had so many more subscribers, I thought I'd give my new subscribers just a bit of a rundown on how we do this. This is about as long as I like to let this rail creep. It's about 50 mil, a couple of inches. Now cut some ties, slip them on there, being careful not to break the clips. Now, I've cut already for the fish plate. I've trimmed the tie plates off these three here, and I've already put a fish plate on there. So we slip that on there like that, and I've got a couple more, just that I didn't cut enough the first time. Slip them on there. Now, our second piece of rail. This is a short piece of rail, just to get me enough length on the next long piece. So I come out of the curve with a long piece of rail, and as I said before, I don't like to have my straight fish plates on the curve, or should I say my unsoldered fish plates on a curve. You should also always solder your fish plates on a curve. But as soon as I come out of the curve, that's when I like to have my mechanical fish plates, as we call them in the trade, or normal fish plates. Yeah, this one's not playing the game. There we go. Now I've trimmed this rail. I've filed it so it's a nice fit. Tapered the ends off it a little bit there, so we should have no problems. Oops, there we go. That's pushing that other fish plate up there. Oh, there we go. And old mate's good here. Now, of course, we need to put another couple of sleepers in here, or ties in here, but I'll leave that when I fill that in. Now, the beauty of doing this is that these ties across here are holding the rail engaged. So over these long staggered joints. Remember, it's always a good idea to keep your fish plates staggered, or your joins staggered. So you have a solid piece of rail opposite this joint and a solid piece of rail opposite this one. So it makes the rail a lot stronger. There we go, just slide that in the middle there. This one's pretty good. Now I also like to solder my rails when they're pretty well straight. But just a tiny little bit of a curve, but virtually straight. I'm happy with that. All right, well, we'll solder this one now. Right, yeah, we've got our join done there, so we'll just solder this one up. A little bit of flux. So I've done this before, but just for the newer subscribers, we'll do it again. Why not? Just trying to get in around the tripod here. See, when the flux takes hold, that solder just gets sucked in to the other side there, other side of the rail, and goes underneath the fish plate and comes up the other side. Lovely, tell your mother. Now don't forget, after you've soldered the join, wash any of the flux away with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol or denatured alcohol or something like that, so the flux doesn't corrode the rail. Like I see it has up here a little bit, since I've dumped something once before there. Beautiful. Rightio. Just spiking this last little bit here. Just do a line up there, jolly good. Now, we're left with, obviously, our staggered rail here. This is at the end of our curve, and I've put that extra piece in, as I explained before, to bring our last piece of flex track out of the curve and onto the straight. So this is where we have our first mechanical joint, if you allow for expansion, after 3 lengths of track soldered together. Now, I've cut these sleepers so I can slide them out. I've cut the chair plates off these two here, so I'll put a fish plate in here, slide that back on, like that, and our other fish plate can go here. Always keep your joins staggered, as we've said before, so you've got a solid rail opposite a join. Makes things a lot stronger and keeps your joins a lot straighter. It's almost prototypical, trendsetters. Now I'm just going to cut this rail here now. Now I'm going to allow a bit of a gap here for expansion, and this piece of track's only about 500 mil long, and there's another gap at the other end. So it's quite a cool day today, so I'm leaving gaps because I know in summer we'll be closing up. So line that up there. Would you believe it's right near a sleeper? Why is it always near a sleeper? I should take them off. And make sure you have your cutters so you have your smooth edge on your good piece of rail. So your crappy cut is on the other side. Nice. And just do the other one. Turn your cutters around now. No, don't turn your cutters around, Greg. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Do as I say, not as I do. Now once again, this is on a sleeper as well, so I've just got to slide the sleeper down a little bit. Could actually take the sleepers out. Sometimes that's not a bad idea, to actually remove the sleepers around where you're cutting so you don't get any interference with your cutters. Ooh, hairy arm there. Arm, I said, hairy arm. Rightio. I do like these vertical cutters. I like them better than the other ones. I'm leaving a bit of a gap there. Smooth side on this side, a good rail. Now these are angle cutters, so the actual cutting face, look at your cutting face is angled and your handles are off to the side. Lovely, tell your mother. Now after you've cut it, I've just taken this piece out so I can file it a bit easier. Always trim the end of the rail up, just on a bit of an angle there. Don't forget underneath as well. Just run your finger along there. Nice. Now we're ready to join this rail. I'm just getting my micro-engineering fish plates, which I like them because they're nice and small, but they are quite tight on Pico rail. So I use, I mentioned this before, my little piece of rail here that I've sharpened to a point, and that way I can sort of wedge this on, and I've got to force it against, and that's the wrong end, Greg. That's why I marked one end. Oh dear, oh dear. Now, why did I spray it with inox, you're saying? Well, it helps it slide on, and I'm just going to push that against down into the timber here, and that'll just drive it on there. Nice. And just having the bit of inox there helps it glide on. Also, real fish plates are lubricated too, you know, so the rail can slide up and down. Even more so today with welded rail, where you do have an expansion joint, you really want it to work. But yeah, real fish plates are lubricated, especially around turnouts. Right, now we just push that down there. Where's the light? There we go. Right. I'll put this middle one on now. So this also helps with putting the fish plates on, this little tool. There we go. Just hold the fish plate, take it out, put our pre-cut sleepers back in, or ties. There we go. So we've trimmed the tie plates off these two. Now all we do is slide the other rail up into here. And Bob is your sister's brother. No. Oh, that'll do. Something like that anyway. Now we're just going to slide this new rail through these plate clips there. Oh, look at that. I think I may have done this before. Only a couple of 1,000 times. There we go. I've just got to fit the other end in, and the last piece of rail on our new passing siding is in. That's a thumb. Okay, our last piece of rail is in. There it is there. And you can see we have our staggered joints there with a gap in each one. And down the other end, our other join with our gap there. Now you're probably thinking that's quite a big gap, but we have a lot of track in our curves to fill that, and it will do it quite easily when summer comes. Ah! You're not still here. I thought we would have gone 20 minutes ago. Yeah, well, sorry about the length of this video. We've rambled on a bit more than usual. Just installing the last toggle switch for our temporary control of our turnout, so we'll all be JMRI eventually, but for now they'll just be all toggle switches. So, well, we're over on time again. So let's go and have a cup of tea and a bit of a break. And in part B of episode 17, we'll come back and look at a couple more little tricks, and then run some trains, trendsetters, and run some trains through this new section and get some stuff happening. So we'll see you in part B. Oh yes, Niles. The most excruciatingly boring piece of video I've ever had to watch in my life. And then at the end, you know, I say, Niles, he has the gall to apologise for it being too long. Ha! Oh, well, I suppose it's the first time Greg's ever had to apologise for his length. Yes, I know. Oh, gotta go. Well, what's down here? And it seems we've come to the end of this rather entertaining and, well, slightly longer than we expected. Part A of episode 17 of the BNSF Birdwood. Yes, well, so, if you can be bothered to join in for part B, please do, as I'm assured that there will be some trains running and slightly more interesting content than this one, I hope. So, anyway, thank you for watching, and, well, maybe funding, you know, forthwith coming, I may see you again. Anyway, choo-choo, bye-bye.